On May 29, 1453, one of the most awe-inspiring cities in history, Constantinople, fell to the forces of the Ottoman Empire. The city that had withstood centuries of siege, rebellion, and decay was finally breached. The Byzantine Empire, born out of Rome's eastern provinces, ended not with a slow decline, but with the roar of gunpowder, the flash of steel, and the final collapse of its walls. The fall of Constantinople was not just the end of a city, it was the end of a world. Constantinople was more than a capital. For over 1,000 years, it stood as the beating heart of Eastern Christianity, Roman governance, and Greek culture. Founded by Constantine the Great in 330 AD, it was a bastion of learning, commerce, and faith. Protected by its legendary Theodosian walls, Constantinople had endured attacks by Persians, Arabs, Slavs, Bulgars, and Crusaders. Even in its decline, it remained a symbol of continuity, a living relic of antiquity. But by the mid-15th century, the Byzantine Empire was a ghost of its former self, reduced to little more than the city itself and a few scattered territories. To understand the fall, we must look east toward the rising star of the Ottoman Empire. Under Sultan Mehmed II, the Ottomans were young, ambitious, and militarily innovative. Mehmed ascended the throne at just 19, and his goal was singular: to take Constantinople. This wasn't just about conquest, it was about legitimacy. Seizing the ancient imperial capital would make him not just a Muslim ruler, but a successor to Rome, a unifier of East and West under Islamic rule. The Ottomans had encircled Constantinople for decades. Now, they would move in for the kill. By early 1453, the city was on the brink. Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos commanded a few thousand defenders perhaps, 7,000 men facing an Ottoman army 10 times that size. The Byzantines had no allies, but a handful of Genoese and Venetian volunteers. Their only hope lay in the strength of their fortifications and the resilience of their faith. Outside the walls, Mehmed's army assembled, 80,000 to 100,000 men, cavalry, elite janissaries, and most importantly massive siege cannons forged by a Hungarian engineer named Orban. Gunpowder had arrived in Europe from the east, but it was during the siege of Constantinople that it proved decisive. Orban's massive bombard, an enormous cannon capable of firing 600-pound stone balls, was used to target the city's famed walls. Though slow and unreliable, the sheer force of the cannon cracked the psychological invincibility of the defenses. For the first time in its history, Constantinople's walls began to fail. The age of fortresses was ending, and the age of artillery had begun. The siege officially began on April 6th. The Ottomans relentlessly bombarded the walls while their navy blockaded the city from the sea. In a stunning tactical maneuver, Mehmed ordered ships hauled over land on greased logs to bypass the chain boom protecting the Golden Horn, harbor-placing Turkish ships right beside the city's sea walls. Meanwhile, Byzantines fought with grim determination, patching walls by night and repelling assaults by day. Emperor Constantine himself fought on the front lines. This was no ceremonial monarch. This was the last Roman emperor in battle armor, sword in hand. On the night of May 28th, as priests and citizens held their final liturgies in Hagia Sophia, Mehmed prepared for the last assault. In the early hours of May 29th, waves of Ottoman troops stormed the city. After hours of brutal fighting, a small gate Kirkoporta was left open or broken. Ottoman forces poured in. The defenses collapsed. Emperor Constantine is said to have thrown off his imperial insignia and fought to the death in the streets. By dawn, the Ottoman flag flew above the city. Constantinople had fallen. What followed was 3 days of sack and plunder. As was common in medieval warfare, soldiers were allowed to loot the conquered city. Churches were desecrated, homes raided, and thousands killed or enslaved. Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom, was converted into a mosque. But Mehmed's ambitions went beyond destruction. He quickly moved to repopulate the city, declared himself Kaiser-i-Ram, Caesar of Rome, and began transforming Constantinople into the Ottoman capital, Istanbul. With the fall of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, what remained of the Eastern Roman Empire, ceased to exist. It had survived nearly 1,123 years after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. Its collapse marked the final end of ancient Rome's direct legacy. But something new emerged: a cosmopolitan Ottoman capital, a center of trade, art, and Islamic scholarship. Mehmed didn't just destroy a city, he reimagined it. And in doing so, the torch of empire passed from Byzantium to the Ottomans. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves across Europe. It symbolized the triumph of Islam over Christianity in the East and sparked renewed fears of Ottoman expansion into Europe. Scholars fleeing the city helped ignite the Renaissance in the West by bringing Greek manuscripts and classical knowledge with them. Trade routes shifted, contributing to the age of exploration as Europeans searched for sea routes to bypass the Ottoman-controlled East. The event marked the end of the medieval world and the beginning of the early modern era. The fall of Constantinople was not merely the conquest of a city, it was the end of an empire, a civilization, and an era. It marked the fall of the last vestige of ancient Rome, the rise of gunpowder empires, and the reshaping of Europe's intellectual and political landscape. For centuries, Constantinople had stood between worlds, between Christianity and Islam, East and West, ancient and medieval. On that morning, in May 1453, it became something else entirely, a symbol of history as relentless motion and the impermanence of even the greatest of powers.